Hey everyone, Adam here. So today I want to talk about perfectionism and to find out if it's ruining you. So what is perfectionism? Basically, it is the concept that you are not going to release something or acquire something until it is absolutely perfect in your mind, meaning that there is no flaws, nothing wrong with it. It is absolutely in pristine condition. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I myself struggle with this. And I think a lot of people have the potential of not doing things or not releasing things or acquiring things because of perfectionism. So over the years, I've really tried to overcome this, trying to be less perfect. Sometimes I'm a little bit too overambitious. And I just wanted to talk about it, share my thoughts on this topic, and hopefully it helps other people out there. So you might be asking, what's the problem with wanting something perfect? Well, the main problem for me has been this kind of like all or nothing mentality. Until it's perfect, I'm just going to not acquire it. Which may not be good if it's something that I actually need or is helpful. Or if I'm creating content, I just scrap the project entirely, or I waste a tremendous amount of time saying like, okay, this is no good and we're just going to scrap it. And I think for me anyway, the underlying issue is one, I always want to put out my very, very best work. If it's not up to my standards, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe this isn't worth doing, right? And as you can see, definitely with this channel, that has not been the case, especially in my earlier videos. And part of it is because, again, I was just trying to get stuff out there and really overcome being a perfectionist. And if you've seen my older videos on this channel, or even my recent videos, mission accomplished. These are not perfect. So for me, I think the underlying issue was, or this was part of it, is just being afraid of failure. I just wanted to give my absolute best, and I realized I don't like failing. And then I soon realized a little secret that I'm about to share with you, and that is, in life, not everything is perfect. Everything in life is going to have trade-offs. It's going to have pros and cons. And when you start looking at things that way, it's a much, much better approach. And I also find that I'm a lot less disappointed because I'm not trying to be perfect at absolutely everything I do. And for me, as far as the concept of releasing stuff, if I'm waiting for it to be perfect, I would probably never, ever release anything. The other major drawback to being a perfectionist is that once you do get to a point where you're satisfied in releasing something, the closer you get to being perfect, the amount of time that's involved to reach that level is just incredible. And so there are certain things that maybe you want to do, you want to strive to be, as perfect as you can be at it. But it is just going to be very, very time consuming. And if you're trying to do everything in your life perfect, I guarantee you're just not going to have the time to do that. So let me give you an example. If you're trying to acquire the perfect car and you find a car that you like, you think, oh, this might be good enough. And you start researching, oh, well, it doesn't have this, doesn't have that. Then you're going to be like, all right, well, I'm still holding out for that perfect car that frankly may not even exist. And then you're going to spend even more time doing research and just holding out until you find that perfect car. And obviously this is true for creating anything, whether it be a video or music or whatever you're trying to create, artwork, a website. The exact same thing holds true. You may have a point where like, oh, okay, this is, halfway decent, but I want it to be perfect. And you may wait another 10 years or something crazy and ridiculous because you're waiting for it to be perfect. So a lot of times now, what I find myself saying is, this is good enough. And I can give you two pretty good examples right now on my most recent videos. If you watch the self-awareness video, it may not be evident, but I had some audio clipping issues. When I was editing the video, I looked at the audio and I was like, darn it. I hear some clipping. Man, like, should I just scrap this entire video altogether? Should I redo it? But if I redo it, it's going to be a tremendous amount of time. And then I realized, I was like, okay, well, I can fix some of this on the back end when I'm editing the video. I had some software that was able to, reduce it, make it not as noticeable. And then I said, okay, you can still understand me. It might be slightly distracting, but you know what? This is good enough. It is not worth redoing this entire video or never releasing this video because of this minor problem. If you look at one of my updates to my channel, it was the most recent one before I really got back into doing this on a more consistent basis. I did not like my head position on that video. It was like way too small, and the framing of that frame the entire time was just awkward. I was able to like zoom in a little bit with my editing software, but like it wasn't ideal. And as I'm watching it, I'm processing it, I'm like, maybe I should just scrap this entire project altogether. I mean, I really for a split second thought that. I was like, wow, maybe I shouldn't even be editing videos and doing this. Maybe I'll just let this channel die out. Like, who cares? I was like, wait a minute, wait. I could maybe refilm it. That's going to take a lot more work. I just don't have the time. You know what? The audio's good. The message is fine. You know what? This is good enough. This is good enough. I'm just going to release it. This is good enough. I don't care. But here's the thing, what I am doing with that information. I'm trying to find ways to avoid those mistakes and make my videos better in the future. I'm trying to improve upon that. So now I'll always check the audio and make sure I'm not clipping. I'll attempt to remember to do that before every video. And then the other thing that I'm doing is I'm trying to spend a little bit more time on the framing and maybe work on the lighting. Again, all of this takes time, but I am learning as I kind of go and create content. And that leads me to my next point, is that there is a time and a place for, I don't want to call it perfect, but moving towards the perfect spectrum. So what do I mean by that? Is basically whenever you're creating something, iterating, refining to get to a point that's better and better and better. So basically you're trying to give your absolute best work, and there's definitely a time and place for that. So let me give you an example of that. The summer of 2019, I gave a big presentation at one of my annual conferences. It's probably in front of like several hundred people, I'm guessing. I don't know. And I'll tell you right up front, was it perfect? No, not in the slightest. Could I have made the presentation better? Yeah, probably. But the key thing is I was satisfied and happy with how that presentation went. Why? Because at that snapshot in time, in that summer of 2019, when I gave that presentation, I basically refined it to the point where when I gave that presentation, I'm like, given the time constraints I have, this is the best work that I can produce under these time constraints and with my knowledge at present day. And so I was content with how that presentation went because of that. And again, was it perfect? No, but I was happy with it. So how do you get to that state? Well, the very first thing I do now is I ask, okay, is this item I'm about to acquire, or this thing that I'm about to release to the world that I've just created, is this a minimal viable product, right? Basically, it's the good enough mentality. Like, am I at a point with what I'm about to buy and purchase, or what I'm about to release, that it is good enough? And if the answer is yeah, okay, this is probably good enough, then if I need to release this creation right now, this thing that I created, I can do that, and I can feel mildly good that I did that because, hey, given the time constraints as of right now, it's good enough. Now, before I release it, whatever it is that I created, the next question I ask myself, okay, I've got a minimal viable product. This is good enough, but do I want to improve upon it? And oftentimes the answer is, yeah, maybe I do want to try to improve upon it. Okay. Then the next question is, how much time am I going to give myself? I'm going to give myself a deadline. Do I have 1 week? Do I have a month? How much longer do I have to improve this? And once that deadline is reached, I release that creation. I find this a very, very powerful way to, one, not only be happy, mildly happy with what you create and release. But I also find it, you feel good about it. You're happy about it. And the same thing goes for acquiring a good. So using a car analogy, like, okay, I found a car this car is good enough. This probably meets most of my needs that I'm about to purchase. Okay, great. Do I want to keep researching and see if there's anything else better out there? Okay, yeah, I do. Okay, great. But what's the deadline? Okay, 2 weeks. Okay, I'm going to give myself 2 more weeks, see if there's anything better out there. If not, then this is the car for me. So, in short, to help you with not being quite a perfectionist, if you're like me, best thing you can do is get a minimal viable product. Get into that this is good enough mentality. After you get your minimal viable product, you basically say, all right, I am going to set a deadline. This is how much extra time I am devoting to this minimal viable product to refine it and improve upon it. Now, why have a deadline? Because it holds you accountable. So you keep iterating until that deadline hits. And as soon as that deadline hits, you release your product. And one of the things that I've realized by doing this, this kind of methodology now, is that I soon realized that perfectionism, I really believe, is just an illusion. It's just a barrier that you end up putting up in your own mind. And acquiring something that's perfect or creating something that's perfect is just simply, it's unattainable. So don't let perfectionism ruin you and hold you up from acquiring things that are helpful, and also releasing awesome stuff out into the world. All right, as always, I hope you found this video helpful. And if you made it this far, again, thanks for watching.